Chapter 30. There seems to be nothing more important than sleeping between heaven and earth. I don't have to worry about the past or the changes of the afterlife. I just need to sleep peacefully, as if I can sleep through the floods of the universe and sleep until the end of the world. Just why, I also feel sad, scared, and hopeless in my dreams. Too many pictures passed by, colored, colorless, joys and sorrows were still in an instant, as if even time had an expression. There is no sound. I saw two rich picture clips, but encountered the quietest sound field. Even if I screamed, I would freeze into a helpless and ridiculous posture. Giving up the struggle and waving quietly before turning around, it is for me to say goodbye to all the chaotic thoughts and the difficult youth. After walking through thousands of mountains and rivers, I smiled desolately. When I opened my eyes, it was already 2 weeks later. When I woke up, it was very quiet around, only a slight sound of the machine instrumentation was heard, the exhaust fan on the edge of the roof was running. I sighed softly. Why did I wake up? But, why would I be reluctant to wake up? In my mind, like the background where my eyes are, there are large blank, and all the memories seem to be covered under the deep snow, no longer visible. I frowned, my eyes gradually focused, and my consciousness began to wake up. I felt unpleasant and irritable. I sat up slowly, seeming a little dizzy. I got out of bed with concentration. The dribs in my hand were very inconvenient. I pulled out the syringe. Raising my wrist, I saw the cyan veins swimming thin under the pale and crisp skin. Some of the needles on the back of the hand had scabbed and condensed into a small brown blood spot, and some were still surrounded by a circle of bruises. Blood gushed out where the tip of the needle was pulled out. So the bright red winded down along the paper-like skin, which was very dazzling. This should be a single ring room ward. Although the facilities are very similar to a hotel, the clean white and the obvious smell of bleached clearly tell everyone that this is a hospital. It's quiet. The room was so quiet that the potion in the pulled outlet bottle fell on the floor drop by drop. The slightly regular droplets gradually became the dominant sound source in the ear. Tick, tick, tick. It's like the wall clock in the hypnotist's hand, gently and stubbornly trying to evoke your memory. I stood up abruptly, my eyes were darkened. I stopped for a moment to regain my eyesight, and then walked slowly into the ensuite bathroom. Every violent movement will bring great dizziness. I carefully took a shower and changed into my clothes in the closet. Although I was ill and haggard in the mirror, I looked peaceful. I opened the door, and walked out. There was a long corridor outside. The walls were thoughtfully painted a light green, like the color of grass that has just sprouted in early spring. I walked slowly along the promenade, sometimes passing people, and sometimes being passed by others. The long corridor seems to never end. I almost suspect that I am passing through a time tunnel. We are all lonely travelers, lost in the ashes of time. A young man came directly to me, stretched out his hand and gently took me into his arms. I saw the eyelashes as bright as the morning star, and there was transparent liquid surging. I smelled the warm and fresh smell, like the sunlight in the depths of spring vegetation. I heard a call as clear as the waves, as if the bright moon was shining under the starry sky at midnight, so overwhelmingly fell unavoidable. Xiaobai, you finally woke up, Xiaobai. I didn't move. Through his shoulder, I saw two other people approaching with intricate expressions. Such a noble and beautiful woman, her eyebrows and sadness do not hide her amorous feelings. What made the middle-aged man look sad and uneasy? Nan. Ruth. The young man slowly let go of me, and he looked at me with a confused and worried expression. I stood there quietly, facing the three people in front of me in silence. Their eyes are mixed: ecstasy, doubt, fear, sadness, depression, and they change rapidly like a storm. I just stood there quietly watching them. The silent silence flowed quietly like a river in the night, flowing out of my eyes and winding among us, gradually isolating and separating us. For a long time, I turned my face, looked beyond the crowd and turned into the distance. I saw the end of the corridor, where the door was open and the bright sunlight splashed down like a waterfall. I walked through them blankly to the end of the corridor. The moment I walked out of the door, my vision was full of scorching light. Such a bright and violent sunlight, as if to do everything possible to spread the light into the world without leaving a shred of leeway. I slowly lowered my head, but I could clearly see a circle of shadow on the sole of my feet, especially conspicuous in the scorching, dazzling sunlight. So clear and so dark. I looked up at the sky and vaguely understood the rules of the game of light and shadow. The more intense the light source, the darker the shaded projection. Oh, is that so? Facing the sunlight pouring down like mercury, in the piercing pain, I smiled and slowly closed my eyes. I fell asleep again. The body is sleeping, but the consciousness is actually awake. I heard someone calling, someone crying, and someone insisting on soft talk. The doctors and nurses are also confused. My body trauma has basically healed. A CT scan showed that all my internal organs are in good condition. There was no hematoma or stagnation in my brain scan. Everything was fine, but I wasn't awake. The doctor said that the structure of the human brain is too sophisticated and complicated, and the patient's brain has been violently hit before, which makes it difficult to judge the consequences. At present, our medicine cannot fully analyze all pathological phenomena. After pondering for a long time, the doctor said that it might not be a reaction of bodily functions, or a psychological suggestion. Mom asked anxiously, "What do you mean?" Sue's desperate voice sounded, "Ming-Mei, don't you understand?" It was Ruth. She didn't want to wake up at all. "No, Xiaobai will wake up. It just took a little time, she needed time to figure it out." Min's tone was soft. The doctor suggested that everyone communicate with me more. Communication with each other is very important. "If you caused the patient's knot," the middle-aged female doctor said mildly but severely, "then it is up to you to help her untie it. She is still so young, like a flower." The doctor sighed softly, the voice flowing like a fountain. "Occasionally wake up for a while, but soon fall asleep again. This time is different from the last slumber. Although I close my eyes, I can still feel the colorful light and shadow flashing on my eyelids, knowing whether it is morning or sunset. The breeze swept lightly from the side of my face, the warmth of the warm sun shining on my fingers. Mother's soft hugs, Sue's silent rubbing, Min's meticulous kisses. I hear all the little noises. Hearing Mother and Sue ridicule, blame, and resentment turned into regret, grief, and comfort. Their words were once like the edge of a blade, cold, thin, and shone with a thin blue light, which split my day and night. Later, those sharp words gradually faded, the persuasive hostility concealed the sharpness of the eyes, and the gripping resentment turned into a sad tear, dripping down the cracks of their fingers, and finally fell into the dust and faded into nothingness. May the lotus bloom in the dust. I sighed in endless sleep. I heard Min's voice calling, "Xiaobai, Xiaobai, Xiaobai, Xiaobai." You can almost see his beautiful and compelling brows, his stretched figure in the sun, and his infinitely affectionate eyes. In my sleep, my tears slipped quietly. After 20 days of deep sleep, on a sunny afternoon, I suddenly woke up from my dream. I saw myself standing in the middle of the still sea. The sea was so cold, the sky was full of light, pale and cold yet so bright, I don't know if it was moonlight or sunlight. The tide is getting higher and higher, and the tall ones are already over my chest. The light like fish scales suddenly turns into a sea of flowers, and the sea of pink and white roses is about to annihilate me. I screamed, and with my arms outstretched, white wings suddenly grew out, and I flew with the slightest flap of my wings. The farther you are from the sea, the closer to the sky. I feel the heat of the sun, and the scorching heat can almost melt people. The front ends of the wings began to spread out, and the light feathers fell one after another. In the scorching heat, it turned into warm and moist water droplets that fell on my cheeks, gradually dripping down and seeping into the corners of my mouth. I tasted the salty taste. I woke up from the dream and saw the face in front of me, so clear and moist like a morning star covered with dew. Min's tears fell on my cheek, and his embrace was so hot that it dispelled all the stagnant chills in my body like the sun. I stretched out my hand and hugged Min's neck tightly, burying my face deeply into the cradle of his neck. Tears poured out, and I laughed lightly. A week later, I was officially discharged from the hospital. After waking up, all the memories have come back, but I didn't tell everyone the news. I chose to forget intermittently. Under the doctor's suggestion, no one dared to stimulate me. Maybe this is better. I saw this kind of information from the mixed eyes of my mother and Sue. So I became a gentle and peaceful Xiaobai again. No, I am no longer Xiaobai. That little white rose should also wither and curtain down. I am a small leaf, a small little leaf that has to go through wind, rain and learn to keep its green color. The estrangement between my mother and I began to dissolve. Over the years, it is only today that I can get close to my mother's heart. When my mother opened her arms, I threw myself into her arms without hesitation, and our mother and daughter finally truly embraced each other. When I saw Sue, I turned my head and focused for a while before unfolding a sweet smile. Uncle Sue. I called him like that. I saw that his eyes were full of tears, but he still tried his best to show a gentle smile. Thinking I wasn't paying attention, Sue and my mother looked at each other sadly, comfortably and nodded. I think sometimes, losing memory is good for you and everyone. As for Min, facing his probing gaze, I didn't say anything, but just looked back calmly. Min, you are the sunshine in my life. No matter where I go, when I think of you, I won't be lonely and I won't feel cold anymore. I did not promise to return to Tokyo with my mother. I have grown up, and I want to live the life I want. I will visit you when I have time. Mother, please take care of yourself. My mother hugged me with a smile, and whispered, Nan, you must find happiness. You must be happy. Sue approached and wanted to touch my head but withdrew his hand halfway through. He is still so handsome and gentle that I have never seen a man more suitable for a windbreaker than Sue. Like when I was a child, I fell into Sue's arms, hugged his neck, buried my face in his neck socket, and smelled the familiar, stable and warm breath. I sighed contentedly, then looked up and smiled. I have found my embrace. In any case, thank you, Sue, for giving me the warmest embrace in my miserable and lonely years. Now, I have to learn to take control of my life. I didn't follow the original schedule, and while everyone was away, I decided to leave the hospital one day earlier. Returning to the residence alone, after more than a month, the mailbox downstairs has been stuffed with a thick stack of bills and letters. The room was still as it was. I climbed up the windowsill. The wind was blowing warmly, the evergreen broad-leaved branches and leaves outside were making a crashing sound. People were laughing occasionally from downstairs. And there was a lot of traffic on the road in the distance. It's like another world. Maybe I should go out for a walk and see the sea. Now in the south, the sea should have started to warm up, right? I began to pack my things. When I turned over the wardrobe, I pulled a stack of clothes, a crisp jingle, and something rolled down the floor. Picking it up, it's the pair of sapphire cufflinks, and the engraved edges of sterling silver are almost smooth and shiny. I narrowed my eyes and smiled and put them into the depths of the old drawer after playing for a while. I don't need them anymore. I only need a backpack to store simple clothes. Before leaving, I flipped through the stack of bills. Suddenly, a letter caught my eye. It was an airmail letter from Alaska, the signature of the beautiful font on the envelope with the slanted tail, Chase. There is only one photo in the envelope. The picture is of a dense forest in Alaska, with rumbling streams on the edge of the forest, still covered with ice and snow. The sun is sparsely shedding from the towering branches. and a beautiful brown deer against a reddish brown and pale green background. Looking back and staring, the gentle tea-brown pupils are clean and clear, reflecting a rainbow-like halo. Turning over the photo, a few lines were written densely on the back. Xiaobai, I joined the wildlife conservation organization and shuttled through the jungle snowfield every day. I feel very happy. We all came to and faced the world at a loss. It's a pity that I was immersed in anger for so long at the most beautiful time. Here, I see that many people face the ugly and wrong behaviors of mankind, but they do not give up or complain. Everyone is trying to save them. I finally understand that there are other choices in life besides darkness, fault, regret, punishment and contempt. That is forgiveness. This is why we can persevere despite our hard work. Carrying my luggage, I walked out of the apartment building. The weather outside was fine, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers and fresh grass. I walked along the usual path, through the familiar park, through the former emerald forest. I felt very relaxed and happy. Turning a street corner, a car horn suddenly sounded behind me. I looked back and saw that a semi-old SUV stopped behind me, and a tall and handsome young man got out of the car. The surroundings suddenly became quiet, only the sound of the wind swept around us, and the fine sunlight scattered from the branches and leaves above our heads. Time seemed to suddenly stagnate into a transparent crystal. I confronted Min quietly. After a long time, Min's brows stretched, and he grinned, revealing his white teeth. Hi, hello, I'm Min. I laughed briskly and let out a low whistle. Hello, I'm Xiao Yi. I got into Min's car, and the car drove away. The wind raised on the car brushed by, and the petals of several cherry blossoms on the street danced lightly, as if a colorful spring rain had fallen. Oh, before we know it, spring had already come. How come I never realized that spring is such a beautiful season? End of story.